Yes.
So, Nivedita will carry on with our story.
Yes.
I was talking to you about my visit to the US last time,
Right.
and I got back as usual in 1989, which we're talking about. Very interesting year. There are a number of other things that had happening. One of the things was that I noticed that the government under Rajiv Gandhi had sent 2 or 3 delegations over a period of time of diplomats and then of politicians to Pakistan. Benazir Bhutto was the prime minister there, to try and sort of create more peace between the two nations. You may recollect that when the Commonwealth Games took place in Delhi, Rajiv Gandhi was then under Indira Gandhi, and he did a lot of work there. And after that, he had visited Pakistan, and we noticed from the TV that the equation between him and Benazir Bhutto of Pakistan seemed to be on a good net. They seemed to like each other. So, working on that, when he became the prime minister, he had decided to send a political delegation and a bureaucratic foreign ministry's diplomatic delegation to Pakistan to see if certain peace talks could be carried out with some good result. They didn't come to much because somehow or the other the politics never worked. So I suggested to him that maybe it would be a good thing to send a military delegation from our army to their army, because the vice chief of the army staff was a Rim Cordial from my school. And I think he was the senior most there, and the rest had all retired, and we still knew him. And I said, we can call him, and on a one-to-one net, since the army chief of Pakistan is normally the president of Pakistan in those days. So we said the vice chief is the chap who's running the army in Pakistan. And we could talk to him and see if he is willing to accept a military delegation from us. There are 2 points which we thought might be easily settled between us and Pakistan. One was the Siachen Glacier. Now, as you know, the Siachen Glacier is a bone of contention between Pakistan and us since 1984. We had captured the Saltoro ridgeline, which is south of the Siachen Glacier. It has 2 main passes under which Pakistan mountaineering teams used to enter from there, go into the northern areas of Ladakh for mountain climbing. And we blocked those 2 passes. One is the Billafondla Pass, which is at about 19,000 feet. And the other was the Siala Pass further up northwest, which was at about 21,000. Now, if we control these 2 passes, then nobody from the northern areas of Pakistan, occupied Kashmir, can enter this area. So there was a constant fight and a battle for these passes going on. We were in very dominating positions. And I think whatever the Pakistan army tried, they were not successful. And we saw a lot of their dead bodies lying around, and we thought that it's time to call a halt to this. So the idea here was that why doesn't Pakistan accept the occupied area of Saltoro ridgeline south of the Siachen Glacier? Siachen Glacier, as you know, is an ice river. And this is a ridgeline which is to the south of it. And since we have occupied that, why can't the so-called line of control, which was worked out in 1972 after the 71 war between Pakistan and India, continue from the northern north of the Ladakh area, the Leh area, to the places that we had already occupied in Siachen Glacier. This was the idea. So he agreed with this, and we contacted the Pakistan vice chief, and he agreed. So we sent a delegation of 4 or 5 officers from the Military Operations Directorate, one of whom I made sure was Major General Gulati at that time. Now, Guru Galati, as we call him, is an armored corps officer. He's from the Deccan Horse, and he retired eventually as an army commander, a very fine officer. And he was in the military operations directorate, and he's a rim collier. So we briefed him that as a rim collier, you have to make your number with the Pakistan Vice Chief, because he's also a rim collier from RIMC, and maybe that will set the atmosphere in a more friendly way so that we could come to some reasonable conclusions. So that is what happened. We sent this delegation led by our Director of Military Operations, who is a Lieutenant General V K Singh. Now, this is not the V K Singh who became the army chief and had some problem. Now he's a minister. This is another V K Singh. He's from the Madras Regiment, and he led the delegation. He was in charge of our military operations. And there was Guru Gulati and two other officers who we sent. The government decided to send one officer from the foreign ministry, or diplomat, also to accompany the delegation so that he could record what transpired. Since eventually the responsibility is the diplomatic and the foreign ministries to create better relations with neighboring countries. So the delegation went, and I think they spent about 3 or 4 days very successfully, and there was a lot of agreement in the aspect of what items should be discussed to progress a better peace. One was, as I told you, the Siachen Glacier area, the Saldoro Ridgeline. The other was a place called Sir Creek. Now, Sir Creek is the boundary, really. It's a creek, it's a rivulet which comes from north to south between the Sindh province of Pakistan and our Gujarat boundary. We have the great open desert, the Ran of Kutch, if you would recollect. So that boundary is the Sir Creek with the Karachi boundary, which Karachi is, of course, in Pakistan. And this Sir Creek, it is a very simple problem, really. What the British had done when they had divided this between two provinces, they had kept the boundary to the eastern bank, that is our bank, or the Gujarat side bank of the rivulet. And we were trying to explain to Pakistan that when there's a rivulet, the boundary should be in the center of the rivulet and should not be on our side of the bank, or for that matter on their side. This was the discussion. We thought that was a simple one to come to a conclusion with. There are some aspects of this which you should realize. When the Sir Creek debouches into the northern part of the Arabian Sea, if the boundary is shifted from, let us say, the Indian bank to the center, a large amount of sea terrain, which would come under the jurisdiction of Pakistan, would be divided in half and half given to it. Because the extension for fisheries and seaborne trade, if you like, and seaborne beneath the sea, there are a lot of minerals and things which can be mined. So there's a fairly large expanse of water which would change hands if the boundary shifted from eastern bank to the center of this. So Pakistan was not willing to arrive at this conclusion. Nevertheless, we thought that the delegation could think of these things. So this was a successful meeting. They did about 3 or 4 days there. When they came back, after examining the results with the government and with the foreign ministry, I think the Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi agreed with our suggestion that we should continue 3 or 4 more days by inviting the Pakistani delegation now to Delhi. Now, the Pakistan ambassador, High Commissioner in Delhi, was a gentleman called Niaz Naik. He's a very interesting man and a very good friend of ours. In fact, he and I became quite friendly. He was a bachelor. He was very keen to settle issues between India and Pakistan as equally as possible. But he did believe that both countries will be greatly advantaged if the quarrel between India and Pakistan, the political problem, can be sorted out. So Niaz Naik was also invited by us to this set of talks in Delhi. And we did another 3 or 4 days. So we came to some conclusions in the talks. The Pakistan delegation agreed that since the Siachen Glacier and the Saltoro Ridgeline, which is south of it, is really in our possession, they accepted the fact that that could be converted to a proper boundary. They agreed with it. They also agreed that if it comes to a push, they would accept the fact that the Sir Creek boundary could be in the center, because that is prevalent all over the world. That principle. But then the delegation raised the point. They said, if we go back to Pakistan as a military delegation and we tell them that this is the result of our discussion, we will be questioned by the public and by the politicians as to what did you get in return for accepting certain demands of India. Now, in any parlance between two countries, to come to an agreement, it should be a sort of a win-win situation on both sides. It can't be a situation where India gets the advantage and Pakistan doesn't, or vice versa. So we thought that their demand was reasonable. We said, what would you suggest? So as far as the Siachen Glacier and the Saltoro Ridgeline was concerned, I don't know if you've seen the Ladakh area. There is a road which goes from Leh, crosses the Khardungla Pass, which is at about 18,200 feet, goes into a valley of the Shok River. And then there's a tributary of the Shok called the Nubra River, which is an extension of the Siachen Glacier. The water comes from the Siachen Glacier. It's about 2 hours drive along the Nubra, which is a tributary of the Shok, to reach the head of the glacier, the Siachen Glacier. Then you have to go along the glacier for some time and climb the mountains on the southern side to come to the pass, Billabong, etc. So Pakistan delegation suggested that if we accept this, Pakistan will go back to its original positions which it held in 1947 after the partition. Now those positions are just below, on the other side of the Saltoro Ridgeline, to the southern side of the Saltoro Ridgeline. There is a northern areas of Pakistan occupied Kashmir, as it is known, and there's a town called Kapadu over there, and that river and track leads on to Skardu and Gilgit. That's the Indus River, and the Shok joins the Indus, and then from near Gilgit, the Indus turns southwards into Pakistan, Punjab. So they said in 1947, that's where we were. So if we accept this boundary of the world, then the Indians must also go back to their positions of 1947. Those positions of 1947-48 of ours were not at the tail end of the Siachen Glacier. We were more closer to Leh and what is known as the Thois Valley, north of Leh. But that our delegation and us, we could not agree with, because it's a question of timing. Supposing that Pakistan, as is usually the case with them, whenever you make an agreement with them, they tend to break it. Supposing we withdraw our troops from the defended positions of these two passes that we were holding, south of the Siachen Glacier, then the Pakistanis may occupy these two passes. And if they do that, it will be very difficult for us to retake those passes. Now, secondly, if the Pakistan troops go back only to Kapadu, which is just below the hill on their side, it takes them a few hours to get back to Belafonda Pass, in case they wish to do that. Whereas, if we were closer to the Thois Valley, that's just beyond Leh, to the north of Leh, it will take us 3 days to reach there. So timing-wise, if we accepted this proposal with the Pakistan delegation, the advantage would be to them in case they break the agreement. And since they have broken the agreement again and again, you recollect the 1971 war, after we returned 93,000 prisoners in 1972, Indira Gandhi's Simla agreement, Pakistan promised that they'll never enter Indian side of Kashmir again, but they did that with terrorism and attacks in the Kargil war, 1999, later. So one can't trust a nation which does not abide by its international agreement. Under these circumstances, when it discussed with the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister himself, Rajiv Gandhi very clearly told me, he said, the point is, supposing they do that, what will we do? So I said, well, we can attack Pakistan in the Punjab border. That's where the weakness is. Not confine our response to the high altitude areas of Kashmir. He said, yes, that's very logical. But he says, after some years, you will retire, and so will he, in case he's not elected again after 5 years. Then the new set of people that come there may not make that decision, in which case India may lose out on the territory. Anyway, we asked the Prime Minister's office, some of the staff there, to check up with the staff of Benazir Bhutto in Pakistan as to what would their political understanding of this case. They did that. And apparently their staff said that their Prime Minister, that Benazir, had said that as a basic point, the Pakistan people are not yet mature enough to accept a peace treaty with India. You know, right since childhood and right since 1947 division, the propaganda in the Pakistan government and the schools, the colleges, and from young children, kindergarten onwards, has been that the greatest nasty nation in the world is India, and the enemy number one. So he says, and she said that we are not mature enough yet to accept a change of heart and to go for peace. Now, Nivedita, I think, as the years go by, I have no doubt that the Pakistan people will get that maturity. And I think this conflict is not going to last forever. So if you look at the next 40, 50 years, I have no doubt that the majority of the politics in Pakistan, and for that matter in India, would lead to better relations in due course of time. But at this point of time, it is not possible. That's the story of the military delegations to Pakistan. Now, some other things happened. We had a visit by General Burgess from the UK. He's a retired general, but full general, 4-star. But they have an appointment in Britain for a permanent office manned by a senior person. The office is established by the government, and he has salary from the government to look after all problems of retired personnel. Now, as you know, in our Ministry of Defense, there are organizations to look after retired personnel, ex-servicemen, as you may like to call them. And this is not very efficient, unfortunately, because people come and go, and their views are different. And many times the ex-servicemen do not necessarily get a fair deal in various things. Recently, the government has done a fair deal on pays and pensions. But prior to this was not the case. So in the British system, you have got the British Legion, as they call it, and they have General Burgess was a 4-star retired officer who was manning that as an official post, and he was responsible to look after all the ex-servicemen problems and the problems of widows and so on. Now, as you know, Britain is very careful about its graves. There's a large number of graves of British troops, and for that matter, of other troops of the Allies all over the world, and in India. In the war against Japan which ended in 1945. From 41 to 45, there was the Burma campaign, and the Japanese at one stage were knocking on our gates of India, the Manipur border and the Nagaland border. In fact, we almost captured Kohima, one of the largest battles fought in World War II between British Indian forces on our side and the Japanese on the other. And there was also a battle fought in Manipur, where we managed to turn the tables and then start reconquest of Burma, which had been captured earlier by the Japanese. So now, large number of graves are there. Many ladies who were now widows, and they were in their 80s, if you like, early 80s, late 80s, they had complained to the British government that, look, we got married to a man and he went and got killed somewhere in India. The least you can do is to allow us to go and visit that grave, pay our respects to where the body of our late husbands died. So General Burgess came to see me, and he said that the British Airways has allowed to bring something like about 25 widows in their 80s to Delhi. And their proposal is that they go and visit Guwahati, that's the capital of Assam, and to visit Manipur, and to visit Nagaland, to visit the graveyard of their husband. So he had approached the Foreign Ministry of India. Foreign Ministry said, okay, yes, you can do that, but we have nothing further to say about it. So what they requested was if a bugler or somebody could be provided to play the last post and the reveille when these ladies have finished paying their respects. They grave, they have. But the Foreign Ministry said, no, we can't do that. You're no longer a colonial country. You manage your affairs yourself. You want to carry buglers from England, you should do that. That would mean more expense. Anyway, General Burgess came to see me. And he said, General, can you help? I said, yes, I'll help, provided we keep it between you and me. Let's not bring the government into it, to the Foreign Ministry. So what was his program? To go to Guwahati, see the graveyard there for stay there a night or two. Then go to Manipur and see the graveyards there for about 2 nights. Then go to Nagaland and spend the night seeing the graves there. So I said, don't worry, we'll look after your problems of ceremony. And we just sent word to the local commanders there that this delegation is coming. They're old ladies. They're all widows. They want to show respect to their dead, and let's not come in their way. So just give them a good ceremonial attendance, whatever is required. So at each of these places, we had a bank of buglers, about maybe 10 buglers from various regiments, and with the bandmaster, etc., to play the last post and the reveille for these ladies. And they were all very, very happy with that. I just wanted to mention this little thing to you, that no matter somehow, I mean, I felt that, when you become an independent country after colonialism, and India is an example in the world where our erstwhile colonial masters are still very good friends. I mean, when the then Congress Party, led by Sardar Patel and Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi, achieved independence for India, it was not an independence given by a revolution. It was an independence given by agreement, legal agreement between Britain and its Whitehall control on one side and New Delhi control of the government of India here, so that it was officially ordained that there'd be a partition and there'd be independence given to Pakistan and India. And the tricolor, the Union Jack was brought down officially by parade, and the tricolor was put up from India's point of view, and the Pakistan flag was put up on their side. So it was a legal handing over of political authority. So after that, now that we are independent, we should not be concerned that, if we help out either Britain or the West in some of their problems, or they help us out, that there should be no quarrel about that, and nor should we stand on too much dignity that we are no longer a colony and hence we won't do A and we won't do B. Nonetheless, as far as the military is concerned, since General Burgess was very charming general of the British Army, retired, we abided by his desire and looked after his group very well. We were very happy with that, and they paid us a lot of compliment. Just as a side issue, I must tell you that even the India Gate that you have in Delhi is really a British-built war memorial for the dead of the British Indian Army. All the names of the people, World War I and World War II, are inscribed on these walls. And we have been using it as our, what should we call it, monument to the past people who died for their country. Now we've got a national war memorial, fine, but we've still got the dignity of the India Gate present on every Republic Day parade. No matter what happens, I'll give you another example. The British War Graves Commission and has also a lot of British, and for that matter, Indian and Australian graves and New Zealand graves. In Gallipoli Island, which is south of the Bosphorus Straits of Turkey, I must have mentioned earlier to you about Turkey's great General Kemal Atatürk, who was known as the Grey Wolf. And you recollect, I went there and laid a wreath on his tomb in Ankara. But he was the Major General at that time when he prevented the occupation of the Gallipoli Islands, leading to the Bosphorus Straits, which lead to the Black Sea, by the British Navy and British Indian Army. British Indian Army had British division, it had Australian New Zealand division, it had artillery support from Indian troops, and it had supply support from Indian troops. Many of them died, and the dead bodies of the gravestones or whatever they are lying on Gallipoli Island. So after the war was over, that's World War One, then the British requested for War Graves Commission to make sure that the graves are done properly and neat and tidy, and they go and pay their respects there. Italy had, Turkey had no objection at all, and they, in fact, supported that question of British and Australian and New Zealand, for that matter, Indian families to go there and pay respects to their dead. Once a person is dead, there should be no question of not paying due respect from all sides, whether it was the erstwhile enemy or the erstwhile friend or foe. That's a side issue. Many people die for their country, and all of us must respect, no matter if they were our enemy. Now, that was the story about General Burgess. Now, we had some problem in early 1990. What happened was that the Pakistanis ran an exercise called Zarb-e-Mumin. Now, this exercise started in 1988-89, and I had taken over in 1988 as the army chief. And we were watching this exercise of Zarb-e-Mumin, where both the Pakistan Reserve Division, this armored division, one in the south, one in the north, came out of the cantonments and peace areas and came out into field areas. One opposite the Ganganagar sector of Rajasthan, northern Rajasthan and southern Punjab, and one opposite the Jammu-Kashmir border between Jammu and Pathankot. And we were watching this. The exercise went on for about a few months. Then after the exercise was over, these people did not go back to their cantonment. So by the end of 1989, we found a concentration of Pakistani armored divisions and infantry in field areas, in their exercise locations opposite our borders, without going back to the cantonment, though the exercise had finished about 6 months or 7 months earlier. We got a little concerned about this. There's a lot of intelligence reports about the Pakistani troops doing reconnaissance on our borders and so on. So we had to get up to do something about this. And with the Prime Minister's permission, we moved very fast. We concentrated certain infantry divisions forward. We took some divisions away from the east, that's from the Chinese border and from the Nagaland area, and brought them into Jammu Kashmir as quickly and fast as we could possibly without creating any alarm. And then the Pakistanis complained through their ambassador, who was Mr. Oakley, if I'm not mistaken, to the American State Department that India is preparing for war. So one Mr. Bill Clark, who was then the ambassador of America in India and who was a good friend of ours, he rang me up and said, "General, I'd like to come and see you." I said, "Fine." He came and he said, "We are told that you're preparing for war, and Pakistanis have complained that you're concentrated for war." Now, I said, "There's no such thing." We thought that these are the gentlemen who have not gone back after Zarb-e-Mumin, so we're just making sure that we don't get a surprise attack which we're not prepared for. That's all there is. But so we just alerted up. So he said, "No, but they say that you concentrated on armored division 4. We had an armored division in Jhansi and we had an armored division in Ambala. We had not moved them." So I said, "Well, that's not true." What had happened was that in due course of raisings of the last few years, which started maybe a year or two before I became the chief and carried on, after I became the chief, is to raise more tank regiments, because as you recollect, right in 71 war, we didn't have enough tank regiments for the infantry formations which defend our border against Pakistan. And you know, every infantry division wants a tank regiment. And for that matter, every infantry corps, which is defending the border, would like to have an independent tank brigade with them, because in the plains, tanks can go everywhere, and infantry defenses are not quite easily held unless you have tank support for counterattack purposes and also for preventing enemy armor from surrounding them and so on. These are large plain areas of northern Rajasthan and Punjab. So we had built up our armored strength. So I told Bill Clark, I said, look, we have not done this sort of concentration. He said, well, then if the Pakistanis are ready, then why have you not done the concentration? Because normally, whenever Pakistan concentrates, our armored divisions are moved to the front. So I said, our armored divisions have not moved. Pakistanis, and from there, American ambassador told the American State Department that we have taken air photographs of tanks in the Mahajan area. Mahajan is, Suratgarh area, central Rajasthan, where we have our tank firing ranges. Since we're raising a couple of regiments of armor, yes, there were a few squadrons of tanks, turn by turn, going there to do their firing, field firing. And they were out driving tank transporters, which take them from the railway station to their firing areas, which were picked up by Pakistani air photographs. So there was a big discussion went on there. And then Bill Clark told me that I said, why are the Americans interested? They said, well, the Americans are interested because they don't want India and Pakistan to go to war. So, because they're both nuclear armed countries. And well, ours was not nuclear at that time because Mr. Vajpayee had not come on the scene yet. We were not nuclear, but Pakistan was. So they gave us American intelligence to say that Pakistan has got its nuclear weapons ready to prevent India from making any reaction. And they've got their troops out in the field. I said, well, nuclear weapons or no nuclear weapons, we are not going to let them succeed. So he said, why have you not concentrated? I said, we don't have. We have enough infantry and tanks on the front line now to take Pakistan on without using our armored divisions. We had 2 armored divisions. So he said, then what are your armored divisions for? I said, if the Pakistanis attack, then we'll break Pakistan up by attacking with the armored divisions later, after holding their attack. So he said, General, we are not convinced. So our government by that time had changed because Rajiv Gandhi, as you recollect, had demitted office after not getting a full majority in the election. And Mr. V.P. Singh had got his National Front government going from December 1989. I'm talking of January 1990 and February 1990, which is the training season for us and for Pakistan in the desert. So I told Bill Clark that after approval from the Prime Minister, I said, well, I can prove to you that we have not moved our armor divisions as Pakistanis suggested. So he said, how will you do that? I said, well, you yourself can make a team and you can visit my armor division in Jhansi, we'll have dinner with them, and if you like, go and count the tanks inside the garage. And you can also visit Ambala to see the tanks there. So he checked up with his State Department and they agreed with that. So he had a delegation. Now, we had a lot of friends in the American Embassy. Tim Hunt, if you recollect, was their military attaché, and Lieutenant Colonel Tim Hunt. And he was the man I used to use as an arrow when I visited America, and also when the American chief visited us. He knew how to speak Hindi and Punjabi, so did his wife. And plus, he had another few chaps from his embassy, and they visited our armor division in Jhansi and received by the general and had a good dinner with him and moved around the garages. So everything was present over there. There was no movement. There was no hustle or bustle. Similarly with Ambara, they said another team there. So they sent a very detailed report to the American State Department. They saying that Pakistan is telling lies. So that's an interesting point. How diplomatically the Americans wanted to prevent any conflict between India and Pakistan at that point of time, and wanted to prove to themselves that we had not quietly started activity to take on Pakistan. Well, they were a superpower at that time, and I suppose they had the wherewithal to intervene. Like, but nevertheless, we made very good friends. And then the Americans are very good at writing books. So some of the reporters wrote a few books to say that India got frightened. They were ready to attack, but they got frightened of Pakistan because frightened Pakistan got nuclear weapons and all that. And so they had a number of things that thanks to the Brookings Institution in Washington and another institution who wanted to come to India and discuss with us and talk to us and have conference with us to say what really happened. We also had the Defense Secretary of Defense, Mr. Bates, who did a visit to India, speaking to both the Pakistanis and Indians to find out what caused the problem and why did it and how did it settle down. Anyway, we were very friendly with the Americans, and for that matter, we had no desire politically to go to any conflict. That's what we said. In my case, by the way, the IPKF was coming back from Sri Lanka in late 1989. We rushed up that return of the IPKF divisions, and I put them through a lot of hard training for a few months to convert them from what would be anti-terrorist jungle warfare to plains warfare in case they're required, in case a conflict develops with Pakistan. There are two different areas of training. And we did very hard training for a month or two when they returned by late 1989, so that by early January or February 1990, they were fully ready for any conflict that might arise. So India was completely ready. In addition, Nivedita, the IPKF is a very small headquarters in Chennai, which was looking after the IPKF operations, had to be wound up. We didn't have enough personnel, but I wanted to make a new reserve corps for India. So the government gave me sanction provided they don't allow any more manpower. So we did some screening of manpower, various units of the Indian Army, and reduced certain organizations, picked up our manpower internally. You see, because if you increase manpower, the defense budget goes up. The idea here was that the government didn't want to spend more money. So from the manpower that already existed, we managed to collect enough people to raise a full corps headquarters, which was 21 corps, and look at it as one of our reserve corps in Bhopal, and ready to be utilized for any conflict if it broke out with Pakistan. And when you have developed your military strength and you have got the capability to deal with any threat, then the threat itself dies down. So even if there was any idea in Pakistan to create a conflict, they could not do that when they realized that we were very well ready. We had raised 10 mountain divisions against China in the north, very different from 1965 and 71. And now, in 1989, we had enough troops developed, including attack corps headquarters, reserve corps headquarters, to deal with any threat with Pakistan. As a corollary to this, I must tell you that now that we are facing threat from the north, the Chinese have become more belligerent on the border. Some of the reserve corps are available for action in Tibet also. So we have the strength now to not only block any problems with Pakistan, but also to take on threats on the northern border. You hear in the papers these days that India might have to face a two-front war. Well, even in 1990, early 1990, when I was still the army chief, we did come to a conclusion that India would have eventually face not only a two-front war, but perhaps a two-and-a-half-front war in the way that there'd be internal terrorism